We're sharing all Central Florida stories connecting generations through culture, lifestyle, and the issues of our time. I'm your host, Shannon Green, and this is The Bridge. So far this year, more American students have been killed in school shootings than U.S. military personnel killed in combat operations. So what is this rash of violence in our schools doing to the psyche of our children? In this special episode of The Bridge, we had a conversation with two children from two different ages about school safety. We also spoke with a mental health expert who will help us learn how parents need to talk about gun violence in schools with their children.
I would say that I've noticed older children, probably teenagers in high schools, a little bit more stressed than the younger kids. And that is maybe because it's a little closer to home, or maybe they had a direct relationship to a student. Also, their understanding is better, and they take it very personally.
So we had two kids today in the studio, Luke and Ella. I want you to sort of take me through the interview and sort of analyze what things stood out to you in terms of what their responses were.
Well, with Luke, it was interesting because he's looking at these events. He has somewhat of a foggy perception of the current events that took place within the last year. He doesn't have all of the knowledge, dates, times, or maybe even know all of the incidents.
Because there was a shooting, I think, down in Tampa or in Texas. I don't remember. But it was in a high school, and I've been seeing a lot of prison escapes.
He does have an idea of what's going on. And it's interesting because if you go back in time and he were to talk about what happened around 9/11, he has all those events organized chronologically, and it's very clear in his head. So the concern I would have for Luke is that it is a little unclear for him and things may be unanswered, but he's unsure how to ask those questions or how to resource that information appropriately because he is so young and we don't want to keep him so susceptible to those things.
Have you ever been scared to go to school? That's a good thing. Have you talked to your teachers ever about any of what's happened when you hear about the shootings?
Yes, definitely. When I tell her, usually in the morning, when I tell her that, she takes the clip, she takes it out, and the door is locked.
Oh, wow. Have you guys ever done any drills at school to prepare for that? What are those drills called?
Lockdowns. You lock up the school and you stay down.
How often do you guys do these drills?
What my principal told me, we usually do them every month from the 1st to the 15th.
The one thing about Luke is, though, he is a very insightful young man. He is very bright and he has some anxiety, so he's probably going to be more aware of some of these incidents than some children who, if I were to ask what's going on in the news today, even slightly older than Luke, would not be able to tell me about these events.
What questions should we steer away from when dealing with children that are really young, like under 10?
Asking specific questions that are not open-ended. Are you scared? Do you know what a shooter does? Do you know what to do when a shooter comes on site? You don't ask very specific questions. You want to ask more open-ended questions. So I heard you had an active shooter drill today. What did you learn? What do you know about it? Not necessarily are you afraid, but well, how do you feel about that? And then feeling them out, because a parent knows their child best, and if they are feeling scared, helping them verbalize that and explain that, but not putting words into their vocabulary, because if we do that, unfortunately, we may not actually know how they're feeling. They may actually be scared, but they may say no, they're not. And I know with Luke in the interview, he said he is not scared, but he also is trying to present a tough front and that he has this under control, and that's his way of feeling empowered. Like, I know what to do when I get to school. I'm not scared.
What questions would you like to get answered that you haven't heard adults answer yet about this topic?
Just why our politicians and our lawmakers aren't really responding to people's, to when people reach out. They're not responding and answering, I would say. So why hasn't that been happening.
Whereas with Ella, she is involved in her community, she's talking about this, she's at the developmental age where she can talk to lawmakers, look and see what's going on, and feel that sense of empowerment. For someone like Luke, there isn't so much of that. So he may say, I feel safe, I feel fine, but he actually may be feeling something else.
So pivoting to Ella, because she is older, so her exposure to the information is a little bit more in depth.
Yes.
What questions should we be asking our teenagers or our tweens about this topic?
Well, with Ella, she's very involved and she's very passionate about this topic. So I don't even know that there are very many questions to ask her, as much as just supporting her and being there for her, because she may get somewhat over involved and anxious, and so she needs, obviously she said she talks to her mom every day, so she needs that support to be there and know, I can fall back on mom, you know, I have that.
What do you ask your mom, or what topics do you bring up within that discussion?
I mean, we communicate to each other whenever we see something in the news, and usually my response is, I'm not surprised at this point.
For other kids her age, it's more, you know, asking them how they feel, what they think, how they were impacted by the event, if there's anything additional that they would like to do to, you know, help with maybe decisions or helping other children feel safe.
If you want to hear from Luke and Ella's mothers about gun violence, log on to our story on OrlandoSentinel.com, where you can also find more information about how to talk to your kids about gun violence.